Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. But I want to really tune in into something that Joe Biden said recently. It's pertaining to Olympian runner by the name of, I believe, Sha'Carri Richardson, who tested positive for smoking marijuana, and that deemed her to be suspended, so she cannot partake in the Olympic Games. And that's another whole topic altogether. Maybe I talk about the Olympic Games and why black people should stay out of the Olympic Games. Well, Joe Biden, he tuned in and he said that rules are rules, which means that she has to follow the rules that the Olympic Games set. And because she didn't follow the rules and she clearly knew that smoking marijuana and that she would be tested for it, that this would disqualify her. And she has took accountability for her actions. But when I heard that Joe Biden, he tuned in and he made that statement, rules are rules, the first thing that came to my mind is that, well, Biden, if rules are rules, your son should be in prison. I say it again, if Joe Biden says rules are rules, then Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, he should be sitting in prison. Or at least he shouldn't be in the position that he has. His son, Joe Biden, who is a known crackhead, who had an addiction of smoking crack. And the reason why I mention this is because Joe Biden pushed the crime bill that put a lot of black Americans in prison behind drug usage from Joe's Biden crime bill. And this is the same era and at the same time and the same bill that affected many black people who were victims of drugs, especially in the crack epidemic. And Joe Biden's son, who also fell victim to the crack epidemic, but he wasn't treated like the black people who were on drugs. Right now, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, he has a flourishing career as somebody who's been a crack addict, has been addicted to crack cocaine for a long time. And because that Joe Biden's son, he is white and he's privileged, and Joe Biden's crime bill then no way affect his own son, who was a crack addict, who's been treated as a victim. He has been honored from smoking crack by his position that he holds today. And there are many black people who are victims of the crack game, who are victims who to this day who are still in prison in United States from Joe Biden's crime bill that he passed. So I'm going to say, if Joe Biden is going to say rules are rules, then your son should not be in this lofty position that he has today. If you look at Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, he has a very lofty position for somebody who's a crack addict. And he's a recovering addict. Allahu Alam might be still smoking on the down low. And then there's some conspiracies behind Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. When you say rules are rules, that he engaged in some loans and he engaged in some type of actions, financial actions pertaining to Ukraine and things pertaining to European in a position that he held and for the government. And some say that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, should be in jail or some criminal charges should be charged on him. But like I said, there's two sets of different rules. So if you're a person like ShaCarri, who tested positive for marijuana and she cannot participate in the Olympic Games, and Biden say rules are rules, then Joe Biden, if rules are rules, it seems like your family are not playing by the rules. So there's two different sets of rules. There's one set of rules for blacks. There's another set of rules for poor white peoples. And there's another set of rule for elite white peoples where they don't have to follow the law. And the law protects them even when they are victims. I mean, even when they are criminals, the law protects them. Because under the crime bill from Joe Biden, his son should have been in prison for smoking crack. Just like the black folks who are victim to the crack epidemic, some of them are still sitting in prison, and many of them went to prison behind Joe Biden's crime bill. So Joe Biden, if you're gonna say rules are rules, I don't see your family following these rules. Matter of fact, your son's career flourished from him smoking crack. While there's many black people today who are victim to the crime bill, who can't get a job, who are barred from certain type of jobs and licensings because they have a criminal record, even it's from the 90s or the 80s, who still have criminal records that bar them from certain type of jobs and positions, right? So I don't see where Joe Biden say rules are rules. Oh, rules are rules? Okay. Then next, Joe Biden as the president, why are you voicing your opinion about the Olympic Games and about ShaCarri Richardson? You should be out there trying to pass that anti-lynch bill. You shouldn't be out there talking about the Olympic Games. You should be out there trying to pass a crime bill for George Floyd against police brutality, anti-lynching laws, and reparation for blacks. We don't want to hear you talk about no Olympic Games and coming in to chime in about the Olympic Games because some black young lady tested positive for smoking weed. I want to hear you pass a bill, an anti-lynching bill. I want to hear it come from you, Joe Biden, talking about reparation for blacks. I don't want to hear you talking about no Olympic Games. So you keep on running around the bushes, running around in circles. You would have gave us Juneteenth. I didn't ask you for that, Juneteenth. No black people asked you that. That's not bringing no money into a black people's pocket. That's not no resolution for slavery and Jim Crow. I want to hear you, Joe Biden, talk about reparation for blacks. Since you wanna tune in to ShaCarri because she's black, I want to hear you talk about black issues for all black Americans, like reparation, an anti-lynching bill, a hate crime bill for police brutality, and a hate crime bill for blacks. I seen you gave the homosexuals LGBTQ a bill. I hear you give the Asians a bill. The black people put you in office. I want to hear a bill for anti-lynching bill, a bill about reparation and police brutality. I don't want to hear you, Joe Biden, talk about ShaCarri Richardson smoking weed and she has to follow the rules. You're not following the rules. Your family's not following the rules. Your son, Hunter Biden, is not following the rules, because if you was following the rules from the crime bill, your son should not be in the position that he is in today from being a crackhead. He shouldn't be in the position. He should have a record for smoking crack like every other black person who went to prison, who was smoking crack behind the crime bill, who has a record today. Your son should be in the same predicament, but he's not. Because we know there's a one set of rules for white peoples, especially elite white peoples. There's one set of rules for you guys. You don't have to follow the rules and the laws. Joe Biden, we don't want to hear you talk about ShaCarri Richardson. We want to hear you talk about anti-crime, anti-lynching bill for blacks, police brutality bill for blacks, and reparation. That's what we want to hear you talk about. If you want to tune in to talk about ShaCarri Richardson because she's a black woman and she tested positive for smoking weed, she already said she take accountability for what she done. And black people, we shouldn't participate in the Olympics Games anyway because they're racist. We shouldn't be in the Olympic Games standing for a country that is racist against blacks people in 2021. And no black person should be representing America in the Olympic Games, the same country that put their knee on the neck of George Floyd in public, and people had to protest just to get the police officer arrested Because if there was no protest, there would have been no arrest. Black people should not be participating in the Olympic Games representing any country that is against them. And America government for sure is against them, because if there's no video recording, and with the video recording, if there is no protest, we don't get nothing passed. If a white person is killed unjustly by the police, that police officer goes to prison. The family is rewarded money in the civil case. They don't even need no videotape. So, Joe Biden, we don't want to hear you talking about ShaCarri Richardson. Because if you want to talk about ShaCarri Richardson smoking weed, your son, Hunter Biden, is a crackhead. And your crime bill has not affected your son, which it should have affected your son, who was a crackhead. Because black people who are crackheads, you treat them as criminals, not as victims. So we see the two different laws. One separate laws for blacks, another separate laws for whites and white elites. You know, black people, man, need to wake up in America. See, black people in America, man, we're sleeping. We're rocked to sleep. You know, and it's very sad to see this young lady, ShaCarri Richardson, which I have my own opinion about smoking marijuana, is going to destroy the black community. And I have another video about legalizing marijuana is going to destroy the black community. She is a great example of it right now. I have right here on my page on Facebook how legalizing marijuana is going to destroy blacks. And that is a good example, ShaCarri Richardson. Her smoking weed, which is legal in her country, in her state. Smoking weed legal in the state. Look, it debarred her from participating in the Olympics Games. So legalizing marijuana does not benefit the black community, is going to set us back. And she's a good example of legalizing marijuana, setting black people's back. They said she's the fastest runner. The fastest runner. Maybe running is the only opportunity her as a young black woman might have right now. And she lost this opportunity from smoking weed. And I said legalizing marijuana is going to set back the black community worse than the 80s, worse than the crack epidemic, worse than the HIV epidemic, the AIDS epidemic. It's going to set us back worse. And her not be able to participate in the Olympic Games is a clear example how legalizing marijuana is going to set the black community backwards. And I will end on that note. I see my kids need my attention right now. Subhanakallah humma bihamdik wa sha'lan wa anta astaghfirullah wa tubu ilayk.